Hello and welcome to the 5-Minute University on Writing Effective Exam Questions. This presentation is brought to you by Sue Stein from Pacific University. Educators use exam questions as a valuable summative assessment tool to document and track student learning. Effective exam questions accurately reflect educators' expectations while fairly evaluating student knowledge. Student motivation in the classroom can improve when students accurately assess learning objectives and outcomes. Effectively written exam questions can identify areas of confusion, improvement, and understanding for educators and students. Many question types exist, and each has usefulness. Determining what information to assess and how to effectively assess it increases the validity and reliability of exams while avoiding throwing out questions after implementation. Writing effective exam questions begins with selecting and identifying what concepts to assess. These are usually reflected in the course learning objectives or outcomes. An effective question should assess a single concept. Deciding what will be assessed will dictate how to disperse the weight of the exam via the number of questions on the exam and points allocated to each specific question. Once you have determined what to assess, the next stage is to identify the levels of learning to assess. Bloom's taxonomy is helpful in assigning learning goals. It begins with remember and progresses all the way up to create. You might have a learning objective that's considered mastery of core principles, so that question should assess understanding, while other objectives may lend themselves to other types of assessment like analysis or evaluation. Next, determine what question type might be the best fit for what you intend to assess. For example, true-false questions are only effective to assess at the remember level, while effectively written multiple choice or multiple response questions can assess application, analysis, and evaluation. Matching questions are better for application assessment and are easy to create, but be sure that you provide clear instructions such as how many times the choice may be used. Ordered response questions are helpful for analysis assessment. Essay questions allow analysis assessments of a concept at the expense of time allocated for students to complete the essays and for you to grade them. As a result, fewer objectives can be evaluated with essay questions. Once you have determined the appropriate question type, create the question stem. The question stem is the core of the question being asked. It must concisely capture the problem while avoiding misinterpretation. Effective question stems are written as a question or partial sentence. The grammar is correct and there are no typos. Definitions are included in question stems if the definition is not an intended concept being assessed. Question stems should not include limiting adjectives such as never, always, all. Words that allow inconsistent degrees of interpretation such as few, some, usually, frequently, and probably should also be avoided. Avoid double negatives, opinions, idioms, slang, and allegories, including irrelevant material that can decrease exam validity. Less words in the question stem is better, so always be concise. If applicable, create distractors which are plausible yet incorrect answer choices for multiple choice questions. Effective distractors are credible and may be selected if the concept is misunderstood. Effective distractors are homogeneous in that they are similar in category and comparable. They should be mutually exclusive and should reflect consistent grammar. Be sure that you are using the same tense and that the length of the distractors is comparable. When creating distractors, avoid being humorous and trying to trick students. If the distractor is an outlier, students will too easily eliminate the choice. Choices such as all of the above or none of the above are not recommended distractors, as student partial knowledge can result in correct answer selection. When implementing the exam, scramble the order that the multiple choice question options are presented, if possible. Here are a few final tips. Identify what to assess and the level of learning that you want to assess. Create an effective question stem. Remember to be concise and clear. Develop plausible distractors. Make sure they are homogeneous and consistent. Avoid limiting adjectives, double negatives, and slang. This concludes our time for 5-Minute University. After completing a short survey on the next page, you can access the handout full of great resources to get you started with writing effective exam questions in your classroom.